It is that time of year as the end of January signifies the start of the 2024 Six Nations. Today, the Rugby Paper Podcast previews the entire tournament in what is a new era for all the countries participating. As has become tradition for the Rugby Paper Podcast, myself and the columnists are joined by British and Irish Lions and England legend and the Rugby Paper's very own Jerry Guscott. Right, it's time for the big one, as has become Rugby Paper Podcast tradition. It actually marks, 2 years now of the Rugby Paper Podcast as well. So very excited for this episode as international rugby returns for the first time since the Rugby World Cup. Six Nations season is upon us. We've all got through January, so a big well done for getting through what is usually a torrid month. And joining myself and all the columnists for the big preview, as always, is English and British and Irish Lions centre Jerry Guscott. How are you, Jerry?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm not too bad. I've got through Christmas. I've not put on too many pounds. I've yet to start the exercising. Work is interesting, and I'm looking forward to being excited by the Six Nations. Want to see some decent rugby. We've got quite a few changes and a lot of unknowns, which makes it that much more interesting.
We were sat here, obviously, this time last year, and we were talking about how the Six Nations, in terms of its magnitude, couldn't really be any bigger. Obviously, you had six teams building towards a World Cup. You had new coaches for England and Wales, respectively. Where do we stand relatively this time? It obviously feels like the start of a 4-year cycle. Does that diminish its importance somewhat?
No, not at all. There's too many memories around the Six Nations. Everybody will be clamouring for tickets. Everybody be going to their usual spot where they watch that opening game or watch their team, and they'll just be recycling the memories like we all do when lots of us friends get together. You tell the same old stories, you laugh a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, something that's changed in the year might spark up and you'll laugh again, but you can't beat memory lane, and you can't beat the excitement and expectation of what's to come. It's just too big. I mean, if you sit down in your seat where you normally sit and watch that opening game, or you go to the stadium, or as I used to do, I used to go the night before with the BBC, and I'd wake up that morning, and if it was in Rome and England are playing Italy, you'd walk around the hotel, you go into the city. It just slowly builds to this crescendo of the whistle, the roar, and then you're off.
And that feeling for you is still exactly the same and will always be exactly the same by the sounds of things.
I think come match day, yeah. I mean, who can't be excited about this Friday and France against Ireland? I'd love to be over in Paris to sample the atmosphere and watch what's going to be an awesome game of rugby.
Or even Marseille, Jerry. They've taken it down there for this one. That would be nice, though.
That's how much attention I'm playing, or even paying.
Just as well you didn't do that during your playing days, Jerry.
Well, I tell you what, Woodward took a risk one year when he said all the players could make their own way to Dublin. No one got lost.
The infamous Terry O'Connor, a journalist friend of past years, once ended up in Morocco when he was trying to get to Paris for a Nations match and filed his report from Casablanca.
Blimey, they have port and brandy over there for him.
I think they do.
To be honest, I think that the move to Marseille spices it up a bit. It's a hell of a venue, that, and possibly because of they're not playing there all the time, so there's a rarity value. But when France play a meaningful test match, not necessarily a World Cup warm-up or anything like that, but a proper full-on test in Marseille, that just has a fantastic buzz around it. It's a unique atmosphere there. It's very different to Paris. Very different.
And they're hopping about for the whole thing, aren't they? It's Marseille, Lyon, and one other. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, the Stade is out of commission. That's been refurbished for the Olympics.
Yeah, but not all three are in Marseille.
They're definitely doing one in Lyon as well. Yeah,
I can't remember where the other.
Did you? I mean, I know how much you sort of respect and have almost an emotional connection with French rugby and its styles and its values and what have you, Jerry. Did you Have you ever fell in love with the Stade de France in the same way that a lot of us did with the Parc des Princes?
I think I always fell in love with the French rugby, and they could have played on Mars. That's what I would have fallen in love with, never the stadium. Sometimes, what always helped playing in France, Parc des Princes was the surface was fantastic. Back in the day when you played at Lansdowne Road, I mean, you'd really want it cut before you played. It never was, but that was a proper cow field. Parc des Princes was beautiful. The atmosphere was great. The horns, the cockerels, the flares. You couldn't really wish for any more. It was intense. The old roast beef it was just at its height, and of course the battles, the engagement between the French pack and the English pack back then was huge, and kind of remains a little bit like that still.
Lansdowne Road must have been really bad if you played all your club rugby at the Rec and you thought that was a bad track.
Yeah, look, I'm not really going to go there, I guess, because I got used to the Rec, but when you get used to International Stadia and the grounds, it wasn't so great then. But look at the Aviva Stadium now; it's perfect.
Yeah. That's a good stadium all round. In fact, I think that might be as good a stadium as there is in the world to watch rugby. I think they designed that really well. I think it's got an atmosphere all of its own. It's not an identikit stadium, partly for planning restrictions, I think, but it's a heck of a place. That Aviva Stadium is good.
Yeah, I guess they wish they could have made it sort of 75,000, 80,000. The revenue missed out on there because of they weren't allowed to put that stand on that one side. Is a bit of a financial blow. But yeah, the atmosphere in all the stadiums in the Six Nations are great. When you read, I think the Stadio Flaminio is sold out for this game against England. There's 60,000 for the next game that they play. So that's good news. It's great.
Just referring to your column that you wrote in the Rugby Paper, Jerry, you outlined your surprise. Obviously, you mentioned it was a new era, and 5 of the teams out of the 6, Italy being the exception, they all have new captains. And you outlined your surprise at Peter O'Mahony and Jeremy George being captains for Ireland and England, respectively. Just go into that a little bit. It's obviously probably not the most forward-thinking selections, given neither of them are likely to make Rugby World Cup 2027, but I suppose they're not thinking about that too much.
No, it's a surprise only for me in that I was thinking that Borthwick might really wipe the slate clean. Maybe do what Woodward did, what Jeff Cook did in the old days, and go for someone young, refreshing, set a new culture. But we're on the outside. We don't know what it's like inside. And he's gone for Jamie George for clear and obvious reasons that are internal, and that is, I think they did a survey of some nature, and the amount of connections Jamie George has with all of the squad is far higher than anybody else, and that's the influence that person can have throughout the squad is wide-reaching, and I can see the reasons for it. He is a good player. He selects himself, which is crucial, and he's a bit of a character and personality. You're not going to get a Steve Borthwick answer from Jamie George. You're actually going to get an answer you're interested in rather than fall asleep. So I think from that respect, we'll really enjoy it, watching, listening to him be interviewed, and he will be genuine. If you watch the Gallagher Premiership, it's great when you get coaches or directors of rugby, particularly like Rob Baxter, that come out and speak exactly what you're feeling or what you thought, and you get a real connection with those people. That he's not pulling the wool over the eyes. He's actually being very genuine without throwing any player under the bus. He's giving you a good insight into what he's thinking, how his team performed, how his individuals performed, and what's going to happen the following week, and some changes and some of the things he might say to the squad during the week.
Do you think that openness is a deliberate antidote to Owen Farrell as a captain? Obviously, there were question marks because he was so to the script in front of the media most of the time, and then it was almost an imagined leadership. And you obviously hear people in England camp saying what a great competitor and leader Farrell was, and we didn't necessarily get to see that publicly. Do you think it's a deliberate juxtaposition to that?
I don't think it's deliberate to have the anti-Farrell. I just think you get your personalities, your characters, they are what they are. And Jamie George plays in his own particular way. He'll speak in his own particular way. And I think it's great, someone who's that experienced, who's talked in front of the media for years and years and years, isn't afraid to say what he feels, whereas someone young, inexperienced, you tend to say what you feel people want you to say, and you will follow script. I think you'll get the same from Amani, who's captain Munster, he's captain Wales before. I mean, the guy's straight. He's a warrior. He is saying what I really believe you won't hear anything different from Peter Amani's lips. He will be very genuine, very honest, thorough, and to the point. I think what you got with Farrell was, I don't genuinely believe it was scripted. It's just his personality in front of the camera, speaking into a microphone. It's just how he felt. I remember Martin Johnson, I'd rather be on the sofa watching Martin Johnson being interviewed rather than in the changing room of whatever staging we were playing in, because I would love to see the sort of microphone trembling from the person who's asking him the question, because they don't want to be made a fool of, because Jono didn't suffer fools. It was that situation where, come on, ask me something interesting. I may give you an interesting answer. If you give me a closed question, I'm just going to answer yes or no. It's up to you to work to make me talk. And when you got Jono talking, he was brilliant. If you didn't, you just got that monotone, mono-browed kind of look and answer.
I don't think it all struck me that Owen Farrell, a bit like Martin actually, just didn't really relish that side of the job, didn't particularly enjoy the sort of face-to-face stuff with the media. And that's fine. I never had a problem with that. I mean, there are some players, people like Danny Grucock, who didn't run away from much. He would run a mile from speaking to the press because he just didn't like doing it and wasn't comfortable doing it. And it was interesting. Chris Robshaw, in a different way to Farrell, he was slightly uncomfortable with the press for more personal reasons. He'd had dyslexia and what have you at school, which is well documented. And Chris was a bit nervous. And in his time, Stuart Lancaster basically handed the duties, if you like, to Tom Wood, who was very comfortable with the press and understood the value of saying something interesting, of answering a good question with a good answer. And he was brilliant at it without overstepping the mark. So he was given almost free rein to be the public conscience of the team, if you like, in his dealings with the press. And Eddie Jones, with Owen Farrell there, Eddie Jones did it a bit with James Haskell, who was a different kind of character completely. And he really loved the press because he wanted to be in the media world. Well, that's fine. It's just a lot easier for people like Jamie George, who's very comfortable in that kind of environment. It's just easier for those blokes to shoulder that burden rather than someone who basically doesn't want to do it, like Farrell or Johnson. They'd rather go and do other things.
I think it's up to the people in the media to get the best out of whoever it is. If Owen Farrell was around for a long time, they all had a long time to work out, what does he like talking about? How can I make him comfortable? And the reality is no one really succeeded. And whether that was down to him not wanting, we'll never know. But I think there's only so much you can say and so much you can answer. The questions can be obvious. The answers we probably could answer ourselves a lot because they're standard. And when you lose, you're not in a good mood. When you win, you're euphoric. You're on a high. The adrenaline's still running. And I really, if you're not up for it, don't put them forward. In this day and age, if you don't want to talk, you just say, I'm not comfortable in front of the camera. I'm okay doing press conferences, but live on TV, I just feel uncomfortable. and send someone else.
Those flash interviews straight after the game are the devil's job, aren't they? I mean, then they're not easy for the broadcaster. And Sonia McLaughlin on the BBC, who I think does a great job, Sonia, because she does ask pointed questions, but it's not a very easy time for the interviewee as they're walking off the field. Either the coach has, just seen his team lose, or a skipper's just played 80 minutes and had 20 points rammed up him. It's a very, very difficult environment. I don't envy anyone involved in that, actually. I think that's a tough call. I understand the need for it, but I think that's quite tough.
It's hard to be yourself, but you got to be yourself. And that's the toughest learning curve that you get. Just be yourself, go for it, say what comes into your mind, don't think about it. And that's your personality. And that's what everybody wants to listen to.
I think both England and Ireland have been quite cute with the captains they've appointed, because you've got to get out of this World Cup cycle. If you appoint a shiny new captain the first match after the last World Cup, he immediately becomes, is he the man to take England or Ireland, whoever, through 4 years to 2027? Well, Peter O'Mahony is definitely not going to be there, and I'd be very surprised if Jamie George makes another 4 years. I wouldn't completely write it off, but so you've got this nice interim period that they can take the flack if there's flack coming England's way or Ireland's way. They can help nurture the team. Compare with Scotland, who've gone right in with Rory Darge. Now, that's an interesting one. He's a hell of a good player, but is he going to actually even be the number one first choice the next couple of years? Obviously, he is at the moment. So I think that's pretty high risk from Gregor, making him the skipper. You could say, new era, glossy new era, new hope and all that. But that comes with its own problems if it doesn't quite go right in the first season or two.
There's also an important aspect. It's becoming increasingly important, hasn't it? They're dealing with the referees on the pitch. There are people who are not good at it. Jamie Ritchie wasn't very good at it. The whole interaction, insofar as you could sense it from the television, the whole interaction he was having with referees was not great. We know about Owen Farrell's record in this regard. Alan Wynne-Jones spent time not being brilliant at it. Sam Warburton was fantastic at it. And it was not a massive.
No, I suspect Jamie George will be very good at it.
Jamie's a
gets on with refs, doesn't he, Jamie?
It's very difficult to imagine Jamie George annoying anyone. In those terms. I mean, I'm sure he's like every hooker. He must have a bit of edge to him somewhere, but he just seems to be a natural communicator, and that's no small thing.
It's a great position to be in, hooker, if you think about it. The referee's there when your scrum goes down. You're coming into a line out. You've got time to look at the referee. You're going away. There's a penalty. You're in the thick of it, and I think that's why most of the time forwards make better. Normally, or it seems to be, forwards make a captain more often because of that closeness, that proximity to the referee all the time.
Yeah.
Away from
John Smith, John Pullen, all those sort of people are right in it, aren't they? For 80 minutes.
Sean Fitzpatrick,
yeah, Fitzy.
I want to sort of jump into England first of all, and we'll kind of go through each team. We've kind of started to do that a little bit, but obviously a lot of headlines around England's squad being slightly hit by 1, retirements, which we've known about for a while, 2, ineligibilities, which we'll get into later, and 3, now injuries. And the area that's been most hit by injuries is the midfield. So, Jerry, for obvious reasons, I'm going to come to you about that. The latest news is that Marcus Smith is out of the opener. Messrs Tuolangi and Lawrence were already ruled out with injury. What do you make of all this, Jerry? And just bluntly, what would be your England midfield for the start of the tournament?
I think I wrote a backline in the column with Caney. I can't remember what that is, and I quickly wrote something down today. So I thought Smith, I would go brave and pick Smith at 10. In the column I mentioned about Freeman coming in because I like his size, I like his pace, I like his directness, and I think he could be good, but it's how comfortable. I don't know how comfortable he would be playing there. And if he was, I would try him. If he wasn't, fair enough. I just thought because he's moved around the back 3 a bit, I think he may have played outside centre once or twice. his size. But then that you look at all those Northampton backs, and apparently they've all put on about 5 kg to 7 kg. And so because I didn't think Dingwall was big enough, but he probably is. And he's more used to playing in that centre position, not necessarily 12, but it's not too far removed. So for me, that 12 position was, for me, and probably me only, it's about the heft and directness and the aggression you can produce from that play, because I think it's crucial culturally to the way England have played their best rugby throughout the ages. And then outside, I'd probably pump for Slade. I think he's playing well enough for Exeter. He's got the experience. You've got another boot for the kicking game that's so important. And I think mainly because he's in form. He's been away from it. He's hungry. I think you could see the best of Henry Slade right now. So that would be the midfield I would be looking at.
I think now that Marcus Smith is injured, there's obviously, Brendan, the temptation to go for a Northampton 9-10. I mean, you've even got the option of a Northampton 9-10, 12-13 if you went Mitchell, Finn Smith, Dingwall, Freeman, or something like that. And with how Northampton have played, but I don't think that would be the worst thing ever if we see that take the field. Yeah,
actually, I think that's what I'd do. I mean, George Ford worries me a bit. I've seen quite a bit of Sale this season, and he's not playing well, and he's got a knee issue. And so I'm not exactly sure, well, he wouldn't be my first choice at the moment. It would have been Marcus Smith. He's injured. So Finn Smith was superb against Munster at Toman, and has actually been very good on a number of occasions. We've seen him. So I wouldn't hesitate to go with that Northampton lineup. Could go really nicely. The one that irritates and annoys me is I think George Furbank's the best of them all, but I don't see where you get him in the team. But he's the guy who makes Northampton tick more than anybody else. But no, I wouldn't hesitate to go with that foursome, the Saints foursome there in the midfield and halfback.
The classic. Hi, Cain. He was just keeping you waiting because you were late. The classic with Furbank, I don't disagree with you, Brenny. He's very talented. He plays well for Northampton. It just doesn't happen on the international field for him. There's very few. The caps that he's got, which will probably be around 10, they're not particularly memorable. And I know he's not playing in a well-established, brilliant, on-form England side throughout all those internationals that he's had. And it's a bit like Henry Slade. Henry Slade, I mean, the guy's got probably 60 caps. But I remember one decent game against Ireland. I think he scored 2 tries in Dublin. He was sensational. And he's never been able to sort of recapture that form. And that's where I think George is. Gifted, talented, brilliant at club rugby, but it's just not been so obvious at international level.
And I've got a horrible feeling, and he's very versatile, but possibly his best position of all will be the one he's never played, and that's 12. I think he's got all the makings of an English Nick Tompkins, and I'd really want to see him there.
He's not robust enough to run. Tompkins
ask Andre Esterhazen. He absolutely slaughtered Esterhazen in their match. He hit him 3 times, and Esterhazen had never been hit so hard. He is a really big tackler for a bloke his size. But in midfield, you don't see it when he's at fullback. But I think he's a very underrated talent. But they won't pick him at 12. But I think that might be his position.
I think you've got to prove the. Would you disagree? Has he played brilliantly every time he's played for England, or has he played in the wrong position?
No, he hasn't played particularly well. I don't think he's been particularly disastrous. But no, Eddie Jones never really decided. He played him at 10 and 15, didn't he? I think at various times. No, he didn't. But England overall weren't playing very well either. So, but no, he hasn't put his best foot forward in a white shirt yet. But he's still, he's only mid-late 20s.
Yeah, he looks a different player in many ways. He looks as if he's stepped up, 2 or 3 gears this season.
He put on 5 kg, I think, Jerry.
Yeah, he looks much stronger, much more physical than he has done up until now. But I mean, we're always stuck in this club country conundrum with England, If he's going to play in a position in international rugby, it sort of seems like a no-brainer that he should have played there for his club. And, you know, that's the same problem with the Freddie Stewart idea of, you know, of bringing him into inside centre. It had to happen at the beginning of this season, and it hasn't. And so we've got what we've got. I was intrigued by Jerry's idea of Freeman as 12, and you know, being able physically to take those hard lines, and really a question of whether it's a position he really wants to play, because you got to want to play it.
It's a huge area if you think about where England had been probably since 2003, 2004. That midfield, all the different combinations, no matter how many of them have played have acquired a lot of internationals, caps, that, you know, since the Tyndall Greenwood partnership, there really doesn't seem to have been a standout pairing. And I think if Borthwick is looking to the World Cup, which he must, and hope, okay, he's got to get a match at a time, but his goal's got to be World Cup victory in 4 years' time. That's really crucial to get that partnership established. You can't have one in for 3 games, another one in for 4. Outside of injuries, he's really got to have a clear picture of what he sees at 12 and 13. I think that is mega important for this team over the next 4-year cycle.
Everyone has struggled, haven't they? I think the 12 position is fascinating because no one, least of all England, have been able to settle on what they want from their 12. Basically, no one's been able to unearth a Geordie Barrett, have they? Apart from New Zealand, who have Geordie Barrett, because Geordie Barrett does the lot. He's big enough to get you through the traffic. He's very secure defensively. He's got a great kicking game, and he's got a 10's distribution skills. Well, if you were inventing a 12 in a laboratory somewhere, you come up with him. But there aren't many of those around. So do you want what I would call a relatively limited, in terms of his skill set, number 12, like Tuilangi, let's say, would be a classic example. The things he does well, he does exceptionally well. But it's also worth remembering that his great performances for England have been at 13. Outside Barrett, outside Farrell.
Well,
that's
2018, the game that Jerry was referring to with Slade in Dublin, he was at 12, and he was offset outside by Slade, but he made all the dents in that game that enabled them to cut loose. So I don't entirely buy that.
Well, yeah, but at 13, he's played in two games where England have rounded up the All Blacks. I mean, to me, but I may take a very old-fashioned view of this. I just wish Slade had played 12 for his whole career.
Yeah, he looks a 12 to me as well, always.
Because
so I would be totally opposite. I like a straightforward, up and atom 12. And I think culturally that's better for England. You look at all the teams that have won the World Cups, they've had a hard, aggressive 12. In this modern day, you've mentioned Barrett, we've got Delande, you've got Dante, you've got Henshaw, you've got Aki. All the best teams have a direct, abrasive, aggressive 12. They don't have the distributor, the fancy Dan. It's rugby at its purest and at its best.
But do you not want to find, if you can, someone who gives you that aggression, but also has the kind of skill set?
Well,
so if you're looking back, Tim Horan would be a classic example.
Yeah, but Tim Horan had this ability to run a really hard line. The guy was a nugget. He was tough.
Best 12 I ever saw.
He was aggressive.
Best 12 I ever
he's Tompkins is a 7 out of 10 Horan.
Yeah.
You just need Geordie Barrett is a blunt instrument. He's not deft with the boot out of hand. He's not deft with his passing. He's brutal. He's not got the silky. He's not a red puff. You know, the guy is direct. He loves confrontation. He's built for number 12. He's built for the wing. He's built for fullback. He's an uber gifted rugby player. You know, he's a tough Will Greenwood. You know, the guy's 6'4", he's 16 stone. You know, but he'd run through Will because he's just like that New Zealand tough nugget. He's just tough, and that's what England need. You know, when Will played inside, 6'4", 15.5 stone, 16 stone, and he could offload, and he could pass, and he could score tries. The guy was world class. Yeah. But that, you know, they're few and far between because they're that good.
Yeah. Well, England haven't really had as good a 12 as Greenwood since Greenwood, I think. If
Tuolangi remained fit and somehow you stimulated him to get up for every game, that guy could have been one of the best. You know, he could have been a Marnunu in his own shirt. That's how good he could have been, but you know, injury wasn't kind.
Jerry, do you think Ollie Lawrence is a 12 then?
Ollie Lawrence is the best centre in the country at the moment. The way he's playing, the guy's on fire. You get those rich veins of form that they come and go. For a back, they come and go because you just don't get that much ball to do it all the time. And conditions, you know, it could be raining for 3 weeks and you don't touch it. You're just running like that for 3 weekends. But it seems to me that watching Ollie that, you know, he's the alchemist at the moment. He catches, he runs into a tackle, he bounces. He's a bit like sometimes an NFL running back. He'll run into a dead end. You think he can't get home, get away, a bump, twist and turn and run away again and find some space. You know, he's running fast. He's leaning into tackles and bouncing off that tackler and going again, or he's running through a gap. He's playing with a maestro, by the way, and he's playing, you know, in Finn Russell, and he's playing in a team that are ambitious and they've got a zest for attack through, I guess, Lee Blackett. So, yeah, I think it's when Lawrence is fit, he strolls back into that midfield, and it's fine. Yeah, that's why it's crucial to have this. Well, Lawrence, you know, I think if I'm Borthwick, Lawrence is in. What's the best combination? Is it Slade? Is it Dingwall? Who is it? And I think that is crucial that they find out, and because Lawrence is the number one centre currently on form.
Yeah. You'll probably disagree with me on this, Jerry. Or no, I don't know why I've just said that. But how much potential do you think Max Ajomo has?
Yeah, Max, I think, is great in attack. I think he's hungry for the ball. He'll get it in his hands, and it seems to me his first thought is, where can I go? Where's the space? Which is great. It's ambitious. It's exciting. I think firstly he's got to hold down that position. He's got to be the number one at Bath, and then you start moving. And I think Van Graan paid him what would have been one of the best compliments that he would have received is when they played Toulouse. He said his defensive game was the best out there. If he continues in that vein with his attacking, opens up, broadens his feel for the game, and when to pass, when to run. You know, the world is his oyster. He's very, very talented.
Do you find it interesting lately? And we've always said on this podcast that we think Ollie Lawrence is best deployed at 13 for England, as he has been so successfully for Bath. But in recent weeks, obviously he's injured at the moment, but we've seen Ajomo move to 13 and Ollie Lawrence to 12. Do you think there's been an England influence there, given that apart from when he started with Tuolangi, I think Ollie Lawrence has always been at 12 for England?
Yeah, I don't believe there'd be an influence from England. There might have been a chat with Van Graan, but he's got to pick his best team to play, you know, to win matches. And I don't think they would do that because England asked. It might, if Ollie asks, that might be the case. But no, Johan will be his own man. I think, first of all, does Ollie Lawrence want to play 12? And your initial answer would be, if Jeff Cook or Jack Rowell or Clive Woodward asked me to play 12, I would say, why? Why do you want me at 12? And if he came up with a good enough reason that I'd never thought of, I would have answered them, okay, that's the way we're going to play. That's the way you're going to use me. But you've got to, does Ollie Lawrence love playing 12? And if he doesn't love playing 12, please don't play him there or any player, don't play them there because you're just not, they say, anyone will say, I'll play for England anywhere. I'll play for England in the back row. Well, you're not good enough. And no, you wouldn't. You genuinely wouldn't. Because you can't and you'll get slaughtered. Ollie Lawrence has got to love playing 12. If he genuinely loves it, then pick him because he'll play well because he's in the form of his life right now.
And it might be
volunteered to play 12, Jerry, just to annoy Carling.
No, even Will's better at 12 than I am.
The trouble with Ollie at 12, though, is that he always gets injured playing 12. And he's a slightly injury-prone player anyway. Seems to me that he doesn't, I sort of winced when he got that try against Toulouse. They used him as a 12. They played him 12 that day, didn't they? And he did that head-banging bit at the tail of the line out, ran through a Toulouse player for a great try. But I thought his shelf life is going to be short if he plays like that. And lo and behold, he crocked himself and he was out after that game and he's going to miss who knows how much of the Six Nations. It might just be coincidence, but I feel a bit more secure when he's playing at 13. I don't feel he's going to get banged around so much. And also, if you're looking for the creativity for what we hope is a more attack-minded England who could have a really useful back three, his trickery at 13 is nice. His hands, his offloads, his passing. That's where I think his major impact for England could be. I've always thought he's a 13.
I think if you look at...
There's a vacancy at 12. It's difficult.
If you look at Ollie Lawrence as a 13, he's cutting lines before the ball comes. He's getting it and using his feet because they passed him at the wrong time. And he's got a handoff and a step to get round or invade those tacklers. Is Ollie Lawrence the guy you see passing 15 yards off his left to right or right to left? Ollie Lawrence is very good at carrying the ball. He's not a distributor. He's good at carrying and running and attacking, and he has a presence in defence. I think it could be utilised as well at inside centre. The way that you play with pods, it's not as straightforward as it was when I played, when you had the backs as backs, the forwards as forwards. It's intermingling. I think he can pick those lines off 12. I think he would be brilliant. The try he scored against Toulouse was good. It was great. He cut a great line. He's just got to learn a bit to anticipate these bangs rather than wanting to run over someone. You lean in, you move away, you ride a tackler rather than smashing a tackler. And those are the bits and pieces you learn. He's still a young man learning his trade. So I think it is a bit of a coincidence he's been injured.
I think that one of the issues with, at centre overall with England is that there are just not enough centres who are English qualified playing in the Premiership. And, the bedrock is pretty thin. There are not people knocking the door down to play at inside centre. I mean, Dingwall is, this season he's played outside centre to Hutchinson, who's been playing at inside centre for Northampton. And England seem to me to be, it seems that this midfield, we call it midfield conundrum. It's been going on forever. And the fact that Lawrence is injured and we're now scraping around, trying to look just before the start of the Six Nations for a for a centre combination is a joke.
I think we get to look, every side has its ups and downs and has its longevity, and wins championships, triple crowns, and England have been in that position where it's been periodic. There's been very little consistency. So I look at, I've said in the column for a long time, there's very few England players that are picking themselves by their performances. You look at the best teams, the settled teams, Ireland, France, New Zealand, South Africa. We could all name their teams, and if we all put teams in a French team or an Irish team or South African team down on paper, the five of us here, we'd probably get 11 right. We'd all have probably about 11. If you put an England team down or a Wales team down, we'd be lucky if we got 7 right or 8 right. And that's where the England team is at the moment. And that's why I said, I can't remember if Cain was tuned in then or not, but it's imperative to get these, the front row, the second row, the back row, to get these combinations synced and connected in and give them a run. And unfortunately, we're not going to get a run quickly, because if Baltic was thinking Spencer or Mitchell, Smith, Lawrence, whoever was going to be outside, even me thinking about what Borthwick might be thinking, it doesn't seem obvious. I know what we all would like. We would like consistency. We would like the 10 to be there for as long as it can, and 12 and 13. But the way they're playing doesn't allow it.
Quite a good idea for an exercise, actually. We'll take 10 minutes in silence and put together an England team and see how many we get. I think 7 would be quite good, to be honest, between the
there's not a single unit, with the possible exception of second row, if you assume that Itoje and Chesham are the blokes. There's not a unit in England side where you'd be at all confident of second guessing Borthwick here.
Chesham and Itoje at the moment are the only blokes.
Well, pretty much. I mean, you've got a bloke from Northampton hanging around, haven't you? And
Coles, yeah.
Is Ezekwe out now? He's gone, isn't he?
Yeah,
he was in and out pretty damn quickly. Yeah, so no, we are a bit undercooked in that department. Look, I don't want to. We spent quite a lot of time on England, and there's one name that I was itching to ask Jerry about very quickly before we move on, and that's because I'd imagine Emmanuel Faye-Waboso is exactly your sort of player, Jerry.
Yeah, uber talented, excited, quick, abrasive. The only thing you think about with youngsters is, sometimes you miss the simple ball, the pass, the easy pass to put someone into space, because you're so young and excited, you want to do everything. And that if I was coaching, that's what I would. What we've seen is all very natural, and he can do that in his sleep. To be great, you've got to have that vision and the understanding of just to pass that ball when it's essential, when it's clear and obvious. But yeah, I love new kids coming in, particularly the experienced ones, and being able to let them go. Zammit, who's now left us, unfortunately, for his dream of NFL. When he first came in, you just wanted to see him run with the ball and see, is he really this quick? And Waboso would just see, if he does get picked, if he does come on, if he does get this opportunity during the Six Nations, that's the measure of how good you are as a player. Can you do it at this highest level? And I don't think there's any massive risk of giving him a run against Italy. Find out, can he deal with the crowd, the attention, doing it when it really matters under pressure. So this would be a great opportunity of any youngsters or any inexperienced players he's thinking about playing, give them a run.
Yeah, I think all 5 of us agree he should start against Italy.
He feels the whole created by Arundel in a sense, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, and Arundel's another very exciting attacking wing, but he's ruled himself out, so that's fine.
So it slightly depends where they're going to play Freeman, though, doesn't it? Because I think he has to be a first choice. If he's not going to be, a left field selection at centre, he has to be the first choice wing. So
Keeping
then
in
you'll
my
get,
side
so
somewhere.
then you've got Tom Roebuck, Elliot Daly, and Faye Boso. So that's quite a close selection. But as Jerry says, Italy away, no disrespect, but that is a game to blood people.
Yeah, 100%.
And the argument for Finn Smith comes up there as well.
Just on the Arundel sort of elephant in the room, because we haven't mentioned it. Jerry, we put out an Ask Jerry segment on our socials for listeners of the podcast to put their questions to you. And a little England-related question from Simon Hayward on Instagram. I'm reading out his wording exactly, so I think it's fairly clear what he thinks. But do you think that English players who play abroad should be unfairly penalised by an outdated RFU ruling to omit them from England selection? Not the most impartial question ever, but
What they call a leading question in court, I think.
Well, I'm with Simon. I don't think any player in this day and age should be penalised for following their living, their dream, whatever they want to call it. Well, you should be allowed to go anywhere. Clearly, if you go Southern Hemisphere, you're out of the game because you're just too far away. Japan probably the same, but I mean, just across the channel. I mean, and in this day and age, how difficult it is financially at the moment, and there is a window of release in the international window of release. So just be clever. Why limit your opportunity to select? And not every player. Not every player can go to France. We still read in the papers, oh, Farrell's going. Well, how much longer was Farrell going to play for England? How much more use was Farrell to England in this next 4-year cycle? The guys that normally go are coming to the end or have been snubbed in some way. But either way, they shouldn't be penalised. So I would allow selection.
And there's another thing to build into that in something like Jack Willis's case. He owes. I mean, rugby's a business. Players are going for the money and the opportunities. The clubs want them because of the value they're going to bring to the clubs. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Willis, having gone to France because of Wasps' collapse. I mean, he didn't ask to be out of work. He's gone over there because there was an opportunity there. It's a fantastic place he's playing, and he probably feels a bit of to satisfy his own ambition to stay there because he feels himself developing. But he might feel a bit of a debt of gratitude and a debt of honour towards the club. And to be penalised for that, it's ridiculous. I just think it's an attitude that's out of the arc.
Crudely, they know if they go what they risk, and the RFU, I think, are very blinkered and short-sighted and very naive by putting this rule in place.
I mean, with Henry Arundel, it is only last May that he was still a London Irish player. I mean, for God's, and he was told specifically he could go and sign in France and there wouldn't be a penalty. And then they turned that decision round. Well, you've got to have some sympathy for the lad. I mean, I think is not fair on any count.
You support him. It's a good decision for him, which is it's all about him, which it should be. And then you put the onus should be on the Premiership to develop more Arundels. So go out there and find them and do it.
Yeah, completely agree. We had one other England-related question that I wanted to put to you from Noah Brown, who said, Jerry, what represents a successful Six Nations for England?
Maybe win 3 games.
Win 3.
As much as I'm laughing, that would, 3 games, because I don't see them beating France or Ireland.
Yeah,
if they can win the rest, if they can win the rest, they've done well. If they win 4, I think they've done incredibly well.
Yeah, I think looking at our predictions, I think someone has England winning 4. I can't remember who. But actually, speaking of the predictions, obviously we're sort of starting with England-Italy, or Italy-England rather. on the Italy front, we've all got England winning this weekend. There's no debate about that. Brendan, I wanted to sort of pick you. You've got France to beat Scotland to beat France, but then you've got Italy to beat Scotland.
Well, that tells you everything you need to know about Scotland and Italy, really, doesn't it?
It tells us all you need to know about you, Brent.
Oh, why? We'll have to consult last year's Six Nations.
Well, don't do that. Don't do that.
Listen, Scotland. Scotland to Scotland. 2000, they got the wooden spoon. They lost every match except England. They beat Grand Slam chasing England. They beat that. Scotland have a history of winning matches they shouldn't win and losing matches they shouldn't lose. So that was my theory there. And Scotland at home to France fairly early in the tournament, maybe a bit of shitty weather, just felt possible. Italy, I still believe Italy have one really good performance in them, and at home against Scotland will, let's be brutal, that's the match they're going to target. They always do. So that was my rationale, probably completely wrong, but there you go.
No, I enjoyed reading it. Just on the Italy front very quickly, I suppose. Last year, we were obviously very much singing their praise a lot more than we had done the year before in terms of the momentum they're building. Jerry, how much of a step backwards do you think the World Cup was? They obviously conceded something like 150 points to New Zealand and France in obviously the space of 2 games.
I'm caught when it comes to Italy. I want to be blunt and brutal and say they shouldn't be in it. But I also want them to be in it because of weekends that we're going to see with a sold-out stadium that could be 72,000 people. But the downside of that is you could have 72,000 there, and they won't, but they could get absolutely walloped. And Italy have become a buy. They've become a team that that other sides really don't have to put their full strength side out against if they don't want to, and that's not positive. And so I'm going around a little bit here because I don't know what the answer is. Do you let them go, bring someone else in? Is Georgia going to be as good? Do we go back to 5 teams? Do you shut it? I just think at the moment it's a great trip to go on. I'd love to be playing against them because I'm going to score some tries. It's not overly competitive. What's it fulfilling? I think there's a lot of questions that don't have a lot of answers.
I think we'll move on just for the sake of time. And we mentioned the sort of blockbuster Six Nations opening, France, Ireland. The France team, while we're recording, actually has been announced. I think the sort of only real surprise is that maybe Yoram Morfana is on the wing and Louis Bié-Biarré is on the bench. No Emmanuel Meafou, who has picked up a little injury, so his long-awaited France debut will continue to be long-awaited. Jerry, you said in your column that you're backing France for the title. Now, I agree with you, but you've got to say as well that France are slightly wounded in terms of their squad. You've got obviously no Dupont, Untermax still injured, Jelange is injured again, Flamand, Meafou, Jaminet. They are slightly depleted. So what gives you the confidence to say that they will not only win, but I think you're backing them for a Grand Slam?
Not sure if I go Grand Slam. Yes, I would though. Yes, sorry. Whether it's a little bit of recall of when you've been really hurt, the way you come back says everything about you. And we got beaten in 1990 in a game that most people had us as favourites, but we weren't. The Scottish team were good. They were better than most people thought. I mean, they had so many British and Irish Lions in that side. They were good. And that really hurt us. And we went 91, 92. We became very competitive. We had a decent team, but we were very competitive. And France have got a blimmin' good team. Despite the injuries, despite the best player in the world not playing, they are uber talented. And rugby, the rugby today is so much about the bump and bruise and the ball carriers and the aggression and getting the game line. they've got all that, and what's made them even more formidable is they've got a goal kicker who hardly misses. I mean, that for me is that was the only missing link to France being as good as they could be. And let's face it, they lost to an amazing team in the World Cup, and it was a game they could have won. It was that close. So I think they're hurt, they're burnt, and they'll come back and they will be intense. My worry would be this opening game, that can they emotionally get there and contain it and play as well as they possibly can? And if they do, they will win, and they will win the Grand Slam.
Yes, they have injuries, and Dupont is a massive loss. You don't lose a player like that and shrug your shoulders. You simply don't. However, you balance that against the fact that Penaud, Ramos, Jalibert, the hooker Movaka, is he starting?
Yeah, he's starting.
Are playing. The rugby are the gods at the moment. They're absolutely outstanding. And Aldrit has just come back from a decent rest because he was very tired at the end of the World Cup, and with good reason. And every sign we've seen from him over the last couple of weeks is he's come straight back in at his peak. Now, those are massive players. Woki's playing pretty well. You've got Cyril Bay back and fit and firing. I have him down for a slam, albeit narrowly. It wouldn't astonish me if I was wrong, because I'm generally wrong about everything. However, I think that they're, if any side's going to win a slam, it will be them. Jerry's absolutely right. This is a big old game on Friday. I think it helps them because they're in Marseille. I don't think that helps the Irish to be playing in that different environment. I think there'll be an electricity around the ground which will help the French insofar as they need any help. And I think that they'll play some pretty great rugby over the next few weeks.
In 2022, Nick, you had France play Ireland in France, France win, France go on to win the Grand Slam. Last year, you have Ireland play France in Dublin, Ireland win, Ireland go on to win the Grand Slam.
Yep.
Is this the case on Friday? Is it not only a championship decider, but potentially a Grand Slam denoter?
Yes. Yeah, in a word, it is. I think that, and I think that home advantage is probably one of the few things that separates the two teams, and that's why you've got to favour France in this instance. I think that I'd be very surprised if they don't pick up from where they left off in the World Cup, despite the loss of Dupont. I see that Antonio. What can you just say? What their no surprises in their side is Antonio. I noticed he was in the squad. Is he at tight end?
He's starting. Yeah. Obviously, U-turned from retirement.
And who are their locks?
Gabriag and Willemse. So Woki is on the bench, and obviously no Meafu, who's injured, and I think Taufi Fanu is also injured.
Okay, and Luku at scrum half,
who's at 9.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think that despite Dupont, Luku, everything that I've seen of him playing for Bordeaux this season, is a very, very accomplished scrum half. And he runs similar sort of support lines. He's not Dupont, but he runs similar sort of support lines to Dupont. His service is good. His kicking game is very, very good. So I don't see him as being a weak link. And also he's got his club partner colleague at 10 in Jalibert, so they've got real understanding there. Obviously the core of the Toulouse side, and also La Rochelle in Aldrit and Antonio up front, two mighty contributors. I just think that they'll be formidable, and I think that the sort of the way that the tournament breaks also favours them to a degree. They finish off with England in Paris, which will be pretty daunting for England. And I think that they'll have enough. this time round just to swing it. And you know that with Sean Edwards there, that they'll be setting the bar high.
Who's replaced Geelong in the back row? Is it Francois Cruz?
It is, yeah.
He's a good player. They don't lose much there. No, he's a real dog.
It's an exciting team. The Ireland 15 will be announced in about an hour. So on the off chance we're still recording then, which I think
you can almost pick that now though. I mean, they're pretty settled.
Yeah, exactly. That's also true. But no, all 5 of us have got France to win this Friday. Has anyone not got France for it? We may as well do that now. Has anyone not got France for a Grand Slam then?
Well, I haven't, because I've got them down
Brendan,
losing at Scotland.
Yeah.
So on the assumption there's one upset result somewhere in most tournaments.
Brendan, who's your tournament winner then?
I can't remember how the maths worked out. I mean,
could probably break.
A couple of sides winning 4, so it'll be whoever gets some bonus points or whatever. I mean, I suspect France might still win it, despite their disappointing defeat at Murrayfield.
I think all 5 of us probably got France then. Let's move on again very finally to Scotland versus Wales. And obviously we mentioned that Rory Darge has been moved in to captain. He's been moved into co-captain with Finn Russell. I don't know if any of you have watched the Six Nations documentary Full Contact yet, but Russell and Gregor Townsend were obviously quite open about their relationship. Jerry, do you think that Finn Russell's appointment as co-captain is kind of the nail in the coffin for that beef, so to speak, and it is now really water under the bridge?
I've not watched it, but take it as face value that Finn, growing up, maturing and understanding what he wants to do. Is it changeable? I don't know. But what I'm seeing here in Bath at the recreation ground, when he's playing away from home, is a kind of all-court 10. It kind of, he's getting stuck in defence. He loves that little cross kick pass. He's making little breaks. He's putting players. It's hard to think how much better it could be. And we know Gregor won't be picking him unless they are pretty much on the same page. So I like Scotland. I just wish they had a pack that could carry harder and more aggressively and just compete more. They can defend. They just struggle to be effective carrying the ball. I mean, I like the back line, whichever 9 they go with. They got 2 great wingers in Steyn and Van der Merwe. Kinghorn is playing brilliant rugby. Tui Palutu is aggressive. They got Redpath who can come on. You got Hugh Jones who can score tries. You give that backline ball, they're in business. But their problem has been giving them enough ball to do the business with.
Great. And obviously, well, just going straight into the predictions, actually, they're playing Wales in Cardiff. I think if they were playing Wales in Murrayfield, we may not be so divided on this one, and it may sway in Scotland's favour. But we've got 3 of us for Scotland to win and 2 of us for Wales to win. So, Jerry, Scotland haven't won in Cardiff in 22 years. You've obviously got Scotland to win. So do you just think this team is now too strong and Wales are now, well, too not strong enough?
I don't hold any light to how many years someone hasn't won in a particular stadium. It just doesn't compute with me. You're good enough or you're not. And on this occasion, Scotland are good enough to win this game. I think they're more together, they're more complete, and Wales are just really rebuilding. That it's very difficult to name. For me, it is anyway to name a Welsh team. Where it's a bit easier for Scotland, and that's because of how long they've been together. The challenge for Scotland is to get over this mental hurdle of being able to win more than 3 games. And Brenny put it brilliantly earlier. Scotland lose games they should win and win games they should lose. They are that inconsistent. Once they find it, they could be very good. But yeah, I just think they're a more complete side than Wales are, and that's why I think they win away from home.
Yeah. It's year 0 for Wales, isn't it? I mean, as Jerry says, those of us who are students of the game seriously struggle to work out.
That excludes you then.
Well,
Order.
That's for you to say, Nick, and I leave it to our adoring public to decide whether you're correct. However, it's a nice joke and beautifully timed, Nick. And it's a shame that it will be edited out.
It definitely won't.
But no, I mean, where do you even begin with Wales? I mean, for a major rugby playing nation, they really are scratching around for a side. I mean, that's not to say that Gatland won't develop a side, but even he, with his record, isn't going to develop a side in the space of a week or whatever, however long they've been together. I mean, it's not going to, a lot of this isn't going to bear that much resemblance, you would imagine, to the World Cup team, which is only a few months ago.
Well, they did. I think they did well in the World Cup for what they had. The form they did produce some form. So I would never write them off completely. But my prediction stands. I just think that Scotland are a more complete side.
The catalyst for that World Cup performance, of course, was Jack Morgan, who's injured.
Yeah. I was intrigued during the World Cup because I thought that on balance there was very little between either England, certainly between England and Wales, and maybe Scotland very, very slightly ahead of those two. I think that we can, there's Gatland continually confounds predictions when it comes to the Six Nations in particular. And I think it'll be a very, very close game. But again, I think that Wales playing at home, there's a sort of desperation there in some ways. They were very close to beating Argentina to get into the last eight. But for a last minute intercept. So I think that they've got, they've got something there, and they'll be in the fight for certain. And with the crowd behind them, they may just swing it. I've got them to swing it, but there'll be very little in it. I think Aaron Wainwright is an inspirational player for Wales, and Rafael is one of the best breakdown operators that there is in the game. Rollins is playing quite well in France, I think. So overall, I like the new captain, David James. I think he's got real dog about him and grit. So I think that they'll. I don't think that they're going to be easy beats at all. And I'm not suggesting anybody else thinks that they will be, but I could see them starting the tournament with a win at home.
I think, Brendan, you're the other one who sees Wales.
I very close, but home advantage is big in the Six Nations. Scotland aren't traditionally great starters. I think, if Wales are going to bring something special to the tournament, it might be in that first match. Be an emotional occasion with David Jenkins, captain in the side. It's just got a sort of story feel to it that it might happen, but it'll be close. Would be surprised if the Scots did nick it, but I'm going for Wales.
It's exactly the same argument. Go on, Jeff.
I hope it's a great game because I'm going to
it. Brendan, your argument is exactly the same one I used last year when I had Wales to beat Ireland at home.
Yes, I'm just thinking as I was saying it.
It's almost word. Your logic is directly comparable. I leave you with that thought.
I hope it's the same result. Only not for the Welsh people, but just because of what I've said.
I was going to bring up that infamous prediction of yours, Chewy. I think that was you were the first member of the Turkey Club in the Predictions League for getting not only the result completely wrong, but the scores you predicted were absolutely nowhere near what actually.
No. Not only was I a turkey, but I did vote for Christmas.
So no, you were a trailblazer because we all followed suit. Actually, we all ended up being members. But just one more question on that before we move on to we've sort of picked our tournament winner, but a player of the tournament each and one to watch each. Jerry, Jamie Ferber on X has asked for the benefit of Welsh rugby about the idea of an Anglo-Welsh league and what your thoughts on that. If the 4 pro teams in Wales played in an Anglo-Welsh league rather than the URC, and what you think about the idea of it. Obviously, it's not entirely clear how it would work.
I would go further and make it a British and Irish league if they were going to do something, change it up. But I think you've got to work with what you've got at the moment and try and make that better. I think everyone's looking outside of what's on the field, and there's no reason why the regions can't make their sides better. There's just got to be better recruitment, better coaching, and discovering of talent. But the idea of an Anglo-Welsh doesn't appeal to me. A British and Irish league genuinely would be exciting.
Interesting. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so that was, I think I said his name. That was Jamie Ferber on X. So thank you very much for the question, Jamie. Okay, we've all picked our tournament winners. All 5 of us have gone with France. I think, say Ireland win on Friday, that could be the quickest turnaround for all 5 of us being immediately wrong that we've ever had on the Rugby Paper Podcast. So it'll be interesting in a week's time when we've got Jiffy back on, actually, whether we're going to have to go back on that. But anyway, so player of the tournament and one to watch. Jerry, who is your player of the tournament?
I'll go for France captain Aldrit as the player of the tournament. I kind of got them down for the Grand Slam, and he's just an awesome player. He's not Razzmatazz like Dupont, but if you're talking about a proper nuggety, gritty rugby player, that would be Aldrit comfortably. And I'm not sure if this player is going to be picked, and it's almost like I've been given a tip of the player to watch, and I'm going to go with Mason Grady. If he can secure a Welsh centre position and get enough ball and show what I've seen on clips and what I've listened to, could be, we talked about centres and the difficulty England have had securing these centres. This kid could be really good if he gets the opportunity.
And you want to see him in the midfield rather than on the wing?
Preferably at outside centre, but if he gets on the wing, good, fair play to him. I suppose you got George North, who's around, that might stop him from being outside centre.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the one to watch, Mason Grady.
Nick, your player of the tournament and one to watch?
Player of the tournament, just watching Cain and Doris the other weekend in the European Cup, and he looks to me, I mean, Aldrit's a great choice as well as number 8, but Doris is really, coming on a storm at the moment. He's taken his game up even a notch from where it was. He's really formidable. He's a tremendous carrier. He's a thunderclap tackler. He's a great ball player as well. He's their talisman in the same way, perhaps as Aldrit is for France. So he's certainly a potential player of the tournament.
And your one to watch?
One to watch. I was thinking, but we don't know whether he'll be in the team to watch. That's the only problem. I was going to say Tommy Freeman. I mean, I think that he's had a fantastic season so far. He appears in the same way Jerry was talking about Ollie Lawrence as being on fire. Freeman seems to me to be on fire. He seems to be popping up in the right place at the right time, making the right moves, playing with real impact. So I hope he gets in the starting lineup and can be the player to watch. But yeah, so I'd say Tommy Freeman.
I think Freeman's an interesting one because we were speaking about someone like Furbank or Slade and them not having quite done it in an England shirt. I think Freeman, people are talking about him as if he's a newcomer. I think people forget how good he was in Australia. I think it was in 2022. wasn't it? He was really, really good on that tour. So we've seen that he can do it in an England shirt. So he would have been my one to watch as well. Chewy, your player of the tour.
I was toying with the Doris idea, actually, Nick, which I think you make a really good point on him. I think he's growing in stature in a side that's not short of a big name and big performing players, but he has become very, very influential. And I thought his performances in Europe were outstanding. But just to be different, I think I will go from Matthew Jalabert as player of the tournament. I think he's good enough to make Romain Ntamack irrelevant.
Big statement. And you're one to watch?
I've never really said many nice things about Harlequins, largely because of their shirts. It's the only time I'm glad I'm colourblind, actually, is those shirts of theirs. But I think Chandler Cunningham South has a bit about him. I think he has some real zip, and he has a lot of energy, and he is certainly not short of skills or size or aggression. And for a young player, he sticks up for himself. He stands his ground. He's everything you might want in a Test 6, actually. And if England are brave, they'll give him a run, because, as we've said about about other players, a first Six Nations appearance against Italy over there is not the worst place or time to be blooded. And I think he has the potential, given the opportunities and a bit of luck with injuries, he has the potential to be a big name England player for a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, good choice.
And Brendan, round us off.
Excellent choices, all of those, and I think I'm going to go with Jalabert as well. I've always thought he was class. I've always slightly preferred him to Ntamack. He had a very good World Cup. He's got the canvas now of a complete Six Nations. He's with his club colleague at halfback. I mean, it's all there for him. So I'm expecting a big, big tournament from him. And my one to watch, hat tip to the Italians, I think Tommaso Menoncello in the centre is a hell of a player. I remember Paul Gustard, when he worked with him at Benetton, saying he was the best prospect he'd ever seen. And they really missed him in the World Cup. Not he would have got any appeal anyway. So he's been hungry. He missed the entire World Cup. He went bloody well in a couple of their warm-up matches. That one against Ireland, he gave Robbie Henshaw a really uncomfortable afternoon at centre. And I think he might really blossom and show some class and some pace in the centre for Italy. So I hope he gets some ball, or enough ball, to show what he can do.
Right, guys, let's wrap up there. Jerry, you said you're off to Cardiff on Saturday. Well, are you flying up on Friday?
Yeah, I'm just on back to have coffee with an ex-rugby international, Matt Perry, now. And on Friday, I'm looking forward to the big game. And Saturday, I'm going to get on a train and join the Welsh supporters heading to the Principality and enjoy the hospitality that's given to me over there.
Still the best fullback of the England fullback of the professional era.
I will pass that on, Chris.
You're telling me he owes me drinks.
And Jerry, you at Twickenham for, obviously it's the Blues away this year, so you at Twickenham for England Ireland and England Wales?
I'll be there for one of them for sure. I'm not sure which one yet. We talked about right at the beginning of the show how exciting the Six Nations is, and you just can't get past the atmosphere at a stadium for a Six Nations. It's so different to even when New Zealand and South Africa and Australia will be coming to town in the autumn. I still take a Six Nations atmosphere. It's just the memories, everything that comes back. It's fantastic, and it's lovely to be right in that mix. And
it's obviously set to be a very different Six Nations to this time last year, but an equally compelling one as well. We'll wrap up, guys. Enjoy this weekend. Columnists, I look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be with jiffy this time next week. And yeah, Jerry, great to see you as always, and probably see you this time next year.
Okay. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Rugby Paper Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on whichever podcast platform you use and recommend the show to your friends. The Rugby Paper is available to buy every Sunday, and to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe to our print, digital and online options at therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions. That's therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions to get all our content for as little as 14p per day.